I said something I still wish I could take back. God? There's no God. And if there is, he's as silent as a stone. I said that right before my daughter on a Friday night. She said nothing. I, on the other hand, felt triumphant. 3 weeks later, I died in a hotel room in Paris. No angels, no light, only darkness. And a voice repeating over and over in my mind, "Are you sure there's no God?" My name is Andrew Callahan. I'm 46 years old, a philosophy professor, a lifelong atheist. But the story I'm about to tell, it isn't a theory. It's the only truth I came to know after I died. What happens when a true atheist dies and realizes he hasn't disappeared? Is hell real? And if it is, who will save you from yourself? I used to believe only the weak needed God, but it was in my weakest moment that I realized I'd been wrong my entire life. I didn't just die. I was swallowed whole by everything I once denied. But the most terrifying part didn't end there. Would you believe I saw my face in hell? I used to have faith, just a little, but enough to whisper prayers every night as a child. I remember talking to God. When my mom cried in the bedroom, my dad walked out the door. I said, "Dear God, please keep my mom safe. I promise I'll be good." But no one answered. My mother died of cancer when I was 12. She left on a quiet winter morning. No voice, no miracle. My father came back the day of the funeral, drunk, stumbling, and shoved me hard to the floor. He said, "You coward. Real men don't cry over that superstitious garbage." From that day on, I stopped believing in God. No more prayers, no more fear. I made a decision. If no one hears you in the darkness, then you become your light. I read everything I could get my hands on. Nietzsche, Hume, Bertrand Russell. I wrote essays, debated, and earned scholarships, all to prove that faith is nothing but a crutch for those too afraid to face reality. And I succeeded. I became the youngest professor in the field of philosophical theology at Yale. My lectures were quoted, shared across social media. I stood before thousands of students and said boldly, "If there is a supreme being, where is he when children die of hunger every day? If God is good, then hell is the cruelest idea he's ever come up with." The crowd applauded. I smiled. It felt like a moral victory. I became a regular guest at conferences aimed at deconstructing faith, invited onto talk shows to speak about critical thinking. And soon, I began mocking anyone who still believed in anything sacred. One of those people was my wife. She used to be a nurse, gentle, patient. She would whisper a quiet prayer before going to sleep each night. I used to lie beside her and whisper, "You're talking to the air," I whispered. Then I laughed. She didn't. One night, our daughter, who was only 6 at the time, asked me, "Daddy, does God hear our prayers?" I scoffed. "No, sweetheart. Grown-ups just made up God to feel safe." She went quiet, then nodded and walked away. My wife just stood there, silent. The next morning, she and our daughter left. No note, no goodbye. I didn't run after them. I walked into my office, opened my laptop, and began writing my next essay. Faith is just a polite word for fear. I believed I was living with reason, clarity, and strength. But, strangely, every night I'd pour myself a stiff drink before bed. Not to celebrate, but to keep from dreaming. Because in my dreams, I saw my mother, sitting alone in a dark room, her back turned. She never said a word. I called out, "Mom!" She never turned around. I used to believe I was the light, but what kind of light is terrified of the dark? 3 weeks after that conversation, I left for Paris, my final work trip, because there, on an ordinary morning, with church bells ringing faintly in the distance, I died, and everything I had ever believed began to unravel. Paris, an April morning. The sky was pale gray, cold and thin, like soaked paper. I was lying on the bathroom floor of the hotel, doubled over in pain. It felt like an iron hand was twisting inside my gut, and it wouldn't let go. I tried to call out. No one answered. It was as if the entire hotel had been drained of sound. All that remained was the sound of my breathing, broken, shaky, like the final offbeat notes of a song played wrong. My head hit the cold tile. My eyes were open, but the world had faded, as if someone had stripped away a layer of color. I no longer felt cold. No more pain. No more body. I stood up. But I don't remember how I got up. I looked down. My body was still lying there. Eyes open, mouth slightly parted, hands stiff. A look on my face as if waiting for someone to explain what had just happened. Am I dead? I wondered. But there was no answer. I tried knocking on the door. No echo. I shouted, "Is anyone there?" No one. I stepped out of the room. The hallway was empty. No traffic sounds. No voices. Everything felt like a hollow replica of the world I used to know. I walked down the hallway. My footsteps made no sound. I kept walking and walking until I realized there was no exit. The light began to fade. Not because the bulbs dimmed, but because the world around me was beginning to dissolve. Walls melted into mist. The ceiling fell like a black curtain. And then there was only me, standing in a space with no shape, no time, no sound. The darkness didn't crash in. It seeped from every direction, slow, hissing like fabric tearing. And, little by little, it swallowed me whole. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe a second, maybe 100 years. I couldn't feel my body anymore, but I knew I was still me. And that, it was the most terrifying part. No one came. No angels, no light, no judgment. Only me and a single thought looping over and over in my mind. Could it be I still exist? In that moment, I understood. Death is not the end. It is absolute isolation. It is being forced to exist forever with your bare, unfiltered self. No excuses, no roles to play, no intellect to hide behind. Until I realized there was no exit. The light began to fade, not because the bulbs dimmed, but because the world around me was beginning to dissolve. Walls melted into mist. The ceiling fell like a black curtain. And then there was only me, standing in a space with no shape, no time, no sound. The darkness didn't crash in. It seeped from every direction, slow, hissing like fabric tearing. And, little by little, it swallowed me whole. I don't know how long it lasted. Maybe a second, maybe 100 years. I couldn't feel my body anymore, but I knew I was still me. And that, it was the most terrifying part. No one came. No angels, no light, no judgment. Only me and a single thought looping over and over in my mind. Could it be I still exist? In that moment, I understood. Death is not the end. It is absolute isolation. It is being forced to exist forever with your bare, unfiltered self. No excuses, no roles to play, no intellect to hide behind. Then me, screaming from the living room, "Religion is opium! Don't you dare teach that girl to believe in that garbage!" My voice echoed again and again, as if even God was listening and choosing to stay silent. She didn't cry. She just tightened her grip on the little cross and then let go. It hit the floor, snapped in half. The second shard. I was sitting in my study, drunk, eyes bloodshot, typing the final email to my ex-wife. "You want to teach our daughter to believe in superstitions? Go ahead. But don't you ever use my name in your prayers." She didn't reply, but I saw her hands trembling as she read it. I saw the tears falling onto the screen. And in that moment, I laughed again. I laughed as if I had won. The third shard. A student stood before my class holding his final paper. He had written about faith and gratitude in the Christian tradition. I coldly read aloud every grammatical error, then tossed the paper to the floor. Faith isn't reasoning, I said. It's the failure to think. The student lowered his head, his face flushed, eyes wet. I remember he never came back to class after that day, and I never saw him again. I was no longer standing. I was falling. Not falling up, but falling inward. A deep, endless well. The further I fell, the clearer the memories became. Sharper, closer. I landed in a dark room with no doors, no walls, and no ceiling. Just emptiness. In the middle of it was a chair. I sat down, not knowing why. And right in front of me, a screen lit up. I saw myself at every moment of my life. Every cruel word. Every time I turned away. Every small action. Every dismissive look. Every shake of the head dripping with contempt. Everything began to rewind. Not in fast forward, but second by second by second. No background music, no narration, just the truth. Unedited, unstoppable, undeniable. I wanted to cover my eyes, but I had no hands. I wanted to cry, but I had no tears. I wanted to disappear, but I was the main character in everything that played out. And then I started to hear a strange sound. At first, just a sigh. Then the sound of weeping. Then came the whispers, hundreds, maybe thousands of them. Why did you say that? Why didn't you listen? Why couldn't you believe just once? They were the voices of those I had hurt. No one scolded me. No one cursed me. They just asked. And that, more than any fire, was what made me want to disappear. That's when I understood something. Hell, it isn't a place of burning. It's not fire. It's not demons. Hell is the place where you see everything you've ever done, and there's no way to make it right. It's where you're forced to face yourself with no way out. No one's coming to save you. There is no tomorrow, no hope. Only one truth wrapped itself around me like chains. I had built hell with my own choices. And just when I thought I was dissolving, melting into the darkness, a light appeared. The very first crack on the pitch-black glass. A thin line of light. Quiet. Not blinding, but so real, it felt like I could breathe again. And then I heard a voice. Not a whisper, but a call. Close, intimate. Andrew. I lifted my head for the first time since I'd fallen into this place. The light in front of me was growing. Not overwhelming, not forceful, just waiting. And I, the one who once mocked all faith, for the first time, wanted to believe it was real. I didn't beg, I didn't expect anything, but that light never left me. And what happened next? There are no words for it, because I met him. The light didn't rush in all at once. It came like the breath of dawn, slow, patient, and steady. One beam. Then another. From the place I thought was nothing but emptiness, light began to rise like a fire that doesn't burn. I didn't run toward it. I couldn't. I just turned toward it, like a lost child seeing the porch light of home from far away. I didn't dare hope, but I couldn't look away. And then he appeared. Not on a throne, no blinding glory, no angel singing, no music, just him. A figure in a simple white robe, eyes as deep as the ocean and warm like fire. Not the kind of light that dazzles, but the kind of light that knows everything about you and still doesn't turn away. I couldn't see his face, but I knew as if my soul had been waiting for this moment since before I was born. He didn't ask me a single question. He just looked at me, and I fell to my knees, not out of fear, but because I had nothing left to hide. I didn't say, "Please forgive me." I didn't say, "I'm sorry." I simply whispered from the last fragile corner of my soul, "If you're real, please don't leave me." He stepped closer. I saw his feet touch that invisible ground, and everywhere he stepped, light blossomed like flowers blooming in thin air. He stood before me, not bowing, not towering, just looking straight at me. And then he spoke. "Andrew, I know you. From the moment you stood outside your mother's hospital room, crying in silence. From the moment you folded your little hands, though no one had ever taught you how to pray, I was there." I began to cry, not out of fear anymore, but because he never left, even after I had pushed him out of my life. "But why didn't you save my mom?" I choked through the tears. He didn't answer right away. He simply stepped forward and placed a hand on my chest. And I felt warmth not on my skin, but in the place I thought was long dead. "Pain is never without purpose," he said. "But to see that, your soul must learn to see with the heart, not with anger." I bowed my head at his feet. Every title, every piece of knowledge, every argument I had built my life on, shattered. I said, "I'm not worthy. I denied you. I've hurt so many people. I have nothing left to give." He was silent, and then he spoke softly. "I'm not asking you to give anything back. I'm asking you to come back." I didn't understand. He placed his hand on my forehead, not with force, not with pressure, just a touch. And yet, I felt every wall inside me crumble. No more logic, no more intellect, only the truth I had always run from. I had always been loved, even when I rejected that love. The light surrounded me. It didn't burn, it lifted. Layer by layer, the anger, the contempt, the disguises. Every mask I wore was as a so-called man of reason. And then I felt weightless, like breathing for the very first time. I spoke with a voice I had never heard before. "If you forgive me, then use me. Even if it's just to wash the feet of a stranger, even if it's just to mop the church floor, even if it means dying again, so long as this time I don't live in vain." He smiled, not the smile of victory, but the smile of a father who had been waiting for his child to come home. "Your journey isn't over. Go back and live, but this time with your true heart." I wept again, but this time it was because I knew I would never be alone again. When I woke up in the hospital bed, the doctors told me I had been clinically dead for nearly 7 minutes. But what they didn't know was that I had lived an entire lifetime in that single moment. And what I did after coming back to life is something no one could have ever expected. I opened my eyes. A cold white light glowed from the ceiling above. The heart monitor beep, 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 beep. Steady, simple, like a monotone song, but for the first time it sounded beautiful. I wasn't dead. At least, not in the physical sense. The doctor stood next to me, eyes wide with disbelief. "My God, you're awake. You were clinically dead for nearly 7 minutes." I smiled, not because of what he said, but because of those last 3 words. My God. They moved me into intensive care. Monitors, IVs, blood tests. But the deepest part of me didn't need resuscitation. It had already been resurrected. I was no longer afraid of dying. What I feared now was becoming the old Andrew again. 3 days later, I wrote my first handwritten letter in years to my ex-wife. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I didn't make excuses, not for my pride, not for my intellect, and not for old wounds. I wrote only 2 lines. I've seen what I did, and I'm not running anymore. If you need it, I'm willing to do anything, even stay away, so long as you have peace. I included a gift, a wooden cross I had glued back together with my own hands, broken in half, but not thrown away, still able to be held if someone wants to hold it. I searched for my daughter. For the first time in 3 years, I stood outside her school waiting for the final bell. I didn't go in, just stood from a distance. When she came out, her eyes met mine for just 1 second. She stopped, one hand holding her backpack strap, eyes wide. I raised my hand to wave awkwardly like a child on his very first day of school. She didn't say a word, just nodded softly, then walked away. But I knew a door had just cracked open. I didn't return to the university. I resigned. They asked me to keep teaching, offered book deals, talk shows, a philosophical take on the near-death experience. I declined. I don't want to analyze God. I want to live close to Him. I started volunteering at a local nursing home, washing dishes, walking with the elderly, and listening to their old stories without interrupting. Not because I wanted recognition, but because I was once the kind of man who never listened. I walk instead of driving. I read other people's letters instead of checking my emails. I smile at strangers, not out of politeness, but because I know they might be walking through the same darkness I once did. One day, an elderly woman at the nursing home asked me, "What did you used to do for a living?" I smiled and said, "I used to be a smart man, but never a good one." She held my hand. "And what are you now?" I gently squeezed her hand and replied, "I'm someone learning how to love, even if it's a little late." I wrote my whole story down, not to publish it, but to give it to my daughter. On the envelope, I wrote only this: "If one day the world feels too cold, remember your father once lived in the coldest place imaginable, and he found the light. You'll find it too, because light never gives up on anyone." I signed it, Dad, version forgiven. One morning, I went to a small church on the outskirts of town. No service, no pastor, no one else is there. I stepped inside and sat in the very last pew, lowered my head. I didn't ask for anything. I just whispered, "I'm still alive. Please use this life of mine for something that truly matters." No voice answered, but I knew He was still there, as if He had never left. I used to think that dying was the worst thing that could happen, but the truth is, living without knowing who you're living for or what you're living for, that's hell. I'm not telling this story so you'll believe me. I'm telling it so that you might look at your own life before you're forced to look back in the dark. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a priest. I'm not anyone special. I'm just someone who once mocked faith and then met the very one I used to deny. I used to think light was just an idea. Now I know light is a person. He doesn't force you to believe. He doesn't use power to scare you. He doesn't punish you for the questions you carry in your heart. He simply waits. Waits for you to grow tired of your ego. Waits for you to collapse inside the hell you built for yourself. Waits for you to be honest enough to whisper the smallest of prayers. "Please, don't leave me behind." I didn't come to convince you. I don't need you to believe, at least not right away. I just want to say this, softly, like someone who made it out. You're not too late. You've never been too late. Even if you've been lost, even if you've been angry, even if you've walked away, even if you've laughed at someone else's faith, there's still a door. It's not locked. All you have to do is knock. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you feel empty. Maybe you're walking through a crowd and no one sees you. I've been there. But please remember this. He doesn't show up when you're perfect. He comes when you're broken. I don't know who you are, but if you're still listening, it means you still have a chance. Take it. Live. Live with your heart. Live with mistakes, but also with the courage to say, I'm sorry. Live with doubts, but be brave enough to try believing just once. Live imperfectly, but never pretend. Because in the end, when you die, you won't take your money, your knowledge, or your fame with you. You'll carry only two things: how you loved and how you were forgiven. I'm Andrew Callahan, a man who once died, who once stepped into the darkness, and I stand here to tell you, I was forgiven, and you can be too. Don't wait until you have to look back in the dark. Look now, and if you find yourself lost, turn around. The light is still waiting for you. If you've ever walked through a night of the soul, if you once lost your faith and somehow found even the smallest flicker of light again, share your story in the comments below. You might be the little light someone else is praying for. And if this journey has touched your heart, hit follow on this channel, because we have more stories to share with you. Stories of awakening, journeys home, and souls just like yours, who were saved. Not because they were perfect, but because they had the courage to knock on the door.